Welcome to our Checkpoint Online. On December 1st, we had our very first checkpoint, and that was to give an update just on where we were in the year as we ended the year 2023. If you're receiving this video, for some reason you couldn't make it, or you're just watching again to get caught up or to be reacquainted with where we are, I want to start by just telling you about our family. Many of you know that Aaron and I have been married for 14 years. We have a 10-year-old son and an 8-year-old daughter, both with birthdays within the next 2 months. So soon we're going to have a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old. So needless to say, our lives can get a little crazy. Our son has jiu-jitsu 2 nights a week. Our daughter has ballet 1 night a week. That's on one of those nights is the same night that Bone has jiu-jitsu. So we're split up. We have life group 1 night a week at our house. Occasionally, one of us will be in the band. So that's another night that we are out. We like to host families over for dinner. Erin does some part-time work, and when on the weeks that she works, that's 2 nights out of the week that she's gone. And then we add stuff like Checkpoint to the mix. Needless to say, once we start adding date nights and ministry trips to the schedule, our schedule gets a little crazy. And so when our lives get crazy, Erin and I will get together. We'll talk about what's coming up, where we've been, and then we'll call our kids into the living room. We call them family meetings. And in those family meetings, we take time to get face to face, puts us all on the same page, also gets us settled from the season that we were just in into the season that we're going. That's what Checkpoint does for us. It gives us opportunity to get face to face, to talk about where we've been and where we're going. When we had Checkpoint Live, what we asked people to do was to take a card. And so even where you are right now, take a card, and I want you to think about, for the season that you've been attending a Restored Church, what has God done in your life? And that will come into play in just a minute. In 2015, there were 10 of us that met in my living room and dreamed about where Restored Church would be. We prayed together, we talked and laughed together. 10 people, 2 of them were a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. September of 2016, that team grew from 10 to 15. And that 15 people was a life group in my house. Honestly, I don't remember what we studied together. It could have been a number of things, but probably maybe Acts or our core values of our church. But even though I can't tell you what we studied, I can tell you what we did. We worshiped, we prayed, we took communion together, we dreamed. We believed that God could transform this city through a small group of people. We believed that no matter what happened with the size of our church, that God could work through us if we were obedient to his call. And we set out to serve our city and to make Jesus famous again. In January 1st, 2017, Megan Baskerville gave her life to Jesus and was baptized into Christ. It was when I raised Megan out of those waters that God reminded me once again that the only thing that mattered was that we led and that he followed. March 19, 2017, we launched. God showed up, and so did 200 other people. And in that first year, we saw 38 people be baptized into Christ. And as we continue to have services, people continue to be drawn to the beauty of Jesus and the majesty that he has in their lives. People gave up addictions. People committed to biblical marriage. People chose to go into ministry and even plant churches. And in 2019, we hosted our very first church planting resident, Kevin McNeil. And in 2020, he moved from Jacksonville to Goldsboro. In 2021, they launched Canvas Church. And then in 2020, we saw the world change. We didn't know what we were going to do as a church. We regrouped. We did everything that every other church tried to do. But even though we went online, our mission never changed. Our grit and our rigor for ministry didn't either. We did our best to serve. We did our best to offer online services and still love people the best we could from 6 feet at a time. Finally, here we are in the space we call home now. In 2021, we came back to Sunday morning services, and again, God showed us that He was still in control, and all that mattered was that He led and that we followed. And for the last 21 months, God has shown His faithfulness to us over and over again. Even though we've had our focus on this facility, and then a couple weeks ago, we saw our very first baptism in our new facility, which was our 100th baptism as a church. And God has been so good to us, both corporately as a church and also individually. It's here that we just pause to remember what God has done in our lives. And so if you have an index card, or maybe you're just jotting things down or you're thinking, it's a good time to write down that thing. What has God done in your life while attending Restored Church or through Restored Church? I promise it'll matter in just a couple moments. Galatians chapter 6, verses 7 to 10 say this: "Don't be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a person sows, he will also reap. Because the one who sows to his flesh will reap destruction from the flesh, but the one who sows to the Spirit will reap eternal life from the Spirit. Let us not get tired of doing good, for we will reap at the proper time if we don't give up." Verse 10 says, "Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us work for the good of all, especially for those who belong to the house of faith." The scriptures tell us that we reap what we sow. Regularly, they tell us that we reap what we sow. Some seasons are meant for sowing, the strenuous season of hard work. But then there is a season, usually pretty short, of reaping. And everyone who heard this passage in the church of Galatia, they would have known about the agricultural analogy that was being made. They felt the pain of hard work, the grueling task of sowing. They knew the temptation of wanting to give up when things got hard, but the scriptures encourage us not to give up. And what verse 10 tells us is that when the opportunity comes for us to do work for others, we should take those opportunities, especially for those in the household of the faith. Restore Church, I'm pleased to announce, probably for the first time in the last 8 years, that I do believe that we are in a reaping season. However, you can still see that there's a chaos in this busy time. Although we are reaping, again, it may be short-lived, it's still busy and chaotic. So this is our family meeting. This video is our family meeting, our face-to-face, even though I can't see you, our face-to-face, are getting on the same page of where we've been and where we're going. So welcome to the family meeting. People for us have always been the priority. People were the priority for Jesus. And so as his disciples, we want people to be the priority for us. We want to not just say that people really matter, but we want to make that a reality. Actually, Mark chapter 10, verse 45 says, "For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and give his life as ransom for many." There's no doubt that Restore Church is growing, but right now there's no room. If the church is anywhere from 70 to 80% full, that new attendees will consider the building to be too full to come back. And therefore, that's why we're going to 2 services on January 7th, 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. This is not for us to become a big church and to grow. However, as we grow more and more effective, more and more people are going to be drawn to Jesus, and we need to create room for them. What 2 services does for us is it creates room without additional cost. It also creates more opportunities for new visitors to get connected with more serving opportunities. It also creates more serving opportunities for those who are involved now. Creates more room for our children in the village. And it solves our space problem for now. I recently asked a friend of mine who is a building consultant, and has been a building consultant for us to come in and to look at Restore Church. And he complimented us on the use of our space. He said there was really no other way that we could have laid out our facilities to make it more functional or create more room and stay true to who we are as a church. He complimented the layout, he complimented the cost, and the amount of hard work that we had. So when I asked him what could we do to create more room, the only thing that he could recommend for us without breaking the law was more services. So what's it going to take for us to do more services? We recently announced, we started the Erase the Red campaign. Erase the Red campaign is a simple campaign to help us erase the red in our serving opportunities. You'll see the banner if you come in on the side of our foyer. And every red block represents a space to be taken up for one volunteer opportunity per service. Now, the biggest portion of this is in the village. And so we need to talk about the village for just a second. As of the recording of this video, Naya Swain has stepped down as our children's director in the village. She's due with her first child in February, and Naya and Aaron have made the mature decision that for Naya, in the early stages of her marriage and being a new mother, it's best for them to focus on their family. So Restore Church is looking for the next gen director. So what can you do to help Restore Church in this season, not just in the village, but in this season? One is we're going to ask you to serve in another position in Erase the Red that won't kill you or cause you to burn out. So for instance, if you have all the energy in the world right now, it's a great opportunity for you to maybe take 2 spots in the village per month. Maybe you'll say, I'll take one whole Sunday and serve for 2 services. Or maybe you'll say, I'll take a position in the village, but also on First Impressions too. You can pray for our next gen director. And then simply this, continue to ask, what can I do to help the village? In this time, please be patient and gracious. Speak positively about the fullness of our building. This is a good thing. The opposite would be tragic for it to not be full. And then if you are a village, you can help recruit other volunteers. There's a great story that we have here of teachers recruiting teachers. Claire had taught in the village for years. She recruited Jordan. They started teaching together. Now Jordan is a teacher. Jordan recruited her neighbor Carly to help teach in the village. And now she's teaching in the village. And I'm sure Carly is trying to recruit other teachers, but it is so much, it's an effective tool for us to help. And for us to get more teachers in the village helps you as a village teacher. So right now, for us to get to 2 services and add more services, we need to erase the red in our deficit in serving opportunities. Let's talk about finances, where we are as a church in finances. In 2023, our expenses were $255,991.71. So call it $256,000. Our annual income was $269,715.81. Call it $270 or $270,000. It's great news. It means we finished the year in the positive. Restore Church will be 7 years old in March. We've never had a year. We've had 1 year where we've ended negative, and that was the year 2022. And we had to spend $70,000 on a new roof out of our own pocket, and we had to spend $17,000 on extra things. So we made it in the positive by almost $14,000 this year. And here's what we had to endure. Last year, we had to pay double the insurance. We had to pay double the mortgage. We had a mortgage here, lease in other places. We had insurance on 3 different spaces. Every maid event that we did cost us $1,000. We gave away 1 week's entire offering on our birthday last year. We gave $5,000 to Canvas Church last year. We had to take out additional storage unit to hold our chairs while we tried to finish construction. And we had to pay an additional $45,000 out of our checking account for what our loan didn't cover for extra expenditures for our building. So we made it. But here is how we made it. In January of this year, I took a full-time job outside of Restore Church, and it cut my pay in half. So from January to mid-May, I worked another 40-hour job while doing my best to keep up with a growing church, and I took a pay cut. We also, this is how we got here, we wouldn't be here without our online congregation. Who is our online congregation? People who are connected with Restore Church from somewhere outside of Jacksonville. Now, 30% of gifts that come in are from outside of Onslow County. It's pretty cool. That means that people who have come here, attended, and PCS somewhere else still believe in our mission and they're giving to Restore. That's incredible. Of those 30% of gifts, those 30% make up close to 50% of Restore Church's income. So 50% of Restore Church's income comes from 30% of donors from outside of our own walls. And there are a couple reasons I'm sharing this with you. The first is there are people who come and gone and still love Restore Church, so much that they still give sacrificially every month. So when I say without exaggeration, I really mean that we would not be in this building without them. Without this group of people, we would still be at the Jacksonville Conference Center or somewhere else. Another reason I'm sharing this is because we're making it, and that's great. And that's something to praise God about, but all we're doing is making it. If we want to reach our goals as a church, which I'll share with you in a minute, we have to do more than just make it. The first thing is, there's many of us who are part of Restore Church who do not give. Now, the only reason I know this is because of the percentages that come in. I don't know who gives at Restore Church, and I don't know who gives what. I like it that way. But this is between you and the Lord. If you're not giving to Restore Church, we're going to ask you that in 2024, you commit to giving sacrificially every month 10% to Restore Church. If not 10%, whatever you can sacrifice for the kingdom. Second thing we're going to ask you in giving is if you are giving to Restore Church, will you increase to make it a sacrificial gift? There are many who give to Restore Church that doesn't really sacrifice anything. So we're going to ask you to push a little bit so we can continue to push a little bit in our community. And the third thing is we're here at the end of the year. Maybe you'll make a Christmas time donation, a Restore Church gift. That's one-time gift. Maybe you'll give right now. As you're watching this, you'll click over and give a one-time gift here at the end of the year. Or third, you maybe are looking at your taxes and you need a gift here at the end of the year to help you with your taxes. Maybe you'll make a gift to Restore Church. Now, why should you give to Restore Church? Well, first, the Lord asks us to give sacrificially. He tells us to be good stewards of what we have and to give back to the Lord. So first is a biblical example of giving, and the Lord asks us, and so we do. The second is the kingdom work that Restore Church is doing. You know, I've talked about us having 100 baptisms in the last 7 years. That's great. Being in this facility, that's great. But did you know that Canvas Church that we planted is averaging about the same attendance we are? And they've had 64 baptisms, and they're only 2 years old. And that's because of your giving. Here's the other thing. In January, a new church is starting that came from Restore Church, and that's Collective Church. Collective Church has had 5 preview services, like practice services, and in those 5 services, they've had 5 baptisms. They haven't even started yet. And that's because you are giving and the kingdom work that we're able to do through the finances that come in through Restore Church. You want to know why else you give to Restore Church? are the cards. Since attending Restore Church, I've understood the true meaning of loving people. And I've understood Jesus more and have grown closer to him. It's made me a part of a community, growing in new friendships, finding a new home here at Restore. Talking about Jesus and loving and caring for all people. The list goes on and on and on and on, giving my marriage a great foundation. Restore has transformed our family from Christians to Christ followers. Restore has shown that God's faithfulness is forever. So this church has helped me solidify my relationship in Christ and a commitment to aim for Him. Guys, this is why you give to Restore Church. It's countless cards like this. And maybe most notably, whatever it is that you wrote down right there in your own life. In this next section, I'd like to talk about real quick the vision of Restore Church. One is the next 6 months. One is in the next year, and then the next 2 to 4 years. The first thing that we'd like to do in the next 6 months coming up is we like to focus on some local construction in our building. Our kitchen is undone and our upstairs is unfinished. And we'd like to work on those to make our kitchen more functional and also to allow us to serve our community a little better. But our upstairs can give us a place for encounter, to meet, for us to have the living room in a good atmosphere, and also for our staff to work. In the next 6 months, we would also like to, so we talked about finishing the upstairs, the kitchen. We want to see 75% of serving opportunities be filled. And that's going to be indicative of Erase the Red and As We Grow, more opportunities. So we want to see 75% of our serving opportunities taken up. In the next year, 2024, we want to give 12% to missions. We've always focused on 10%. We're going to give 12% to missions. 7% of that will go to church planting. 3% of that will go to local missions that are working here. And 2% of that will come available at the beginning of each month based on the giving from the last month from local benevolence for anyone who calls that needs help. So 12% will go to missions. We want to invest in church planting, which we just talked about. We want 75% of the total giving to be from Restore Church. Right now it's 50%. We want 75% of giving to come from Restore Church. We want to focus this year on discipleship. And so you'll hear us talk about life groups, but you'll also hear us talk more about discipleship, one-on-one discipleship. And we want to focus on biblical literacy in 2024. There's 2 goals that we have for the next 2 to 3 years. And that's, it's not limited to these, but these are our goals for coming up. And one is to hire another full-time staff member. Of course, this is all going to be dependent on our growth as a church and our growth financially. We'll hire another full-time staff member. And remember when I talked about bringing in that building consultant? So here's how this went. This is our last goal. Our building consultant came in. We talked about number of services. He said, all right, 2 services. Now, 2 services is going to get us caught up. It can give us enough space to grow. But what happens when those 2 services are full? Well, the natural step is a 3rd service. We're still working on what that looks like. We don't know, but we're still working on what that looks like. So then I asked the next question, well, what happens when we fill a 3? Then we fill a 4th and a 5th and a 6th, a 7th, 8th. I mean, obviously we can't just keep adding services. So I asked this building consultant, what do we do? And he says, well, you have 3 options. One is you move. Now, that's the last option, is that we move. Second is like a campus type thing where we have a group here that's meeting, and at the same time on Sunday morning, another group is meeting a Restore Church in a different area of our town. and we'll figure out those logistics if we have to go there. The third is, he said, you buy up the block. He said, you just start going down the next couple buildings and try to purchase those and expand the Restored Church locally. And I'd love to do that. This has got to be a move of God. We have to be ready financially. We have to be ready in-house, knowing that we're ready to move forward. But ultimately, this would be a move of God because those buildings are not for sale. And right now, we're not in a position to make offers on this. So those are our goals for 2024. There are some that are easy to reach. There are some that are high to reach. But man, we believe that through the power of God, through the vision he's given us here at Restore Church, and ultimately through his people, that we can continue moving on in the kingdom of God. Thank you so much for spending the time watching this video. We love you. We're praying for you. And thank you for being a part of this family meeting.